So I'm going to start a series over 1 Samuel 16. It's been a story I've been reading here for a little bit now, and it's got a whole lot in it. It's a very interesting story. But before I can start the story, I got to do a quick backdrop. We know that Samuel was a judge. He then got old, called his two sons to be judges, but they were taking bribes, weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So then the elders of Israel, they came to Samuel and said, "We want a king so we can be like all the other nations." And they got what they wanted. At least they got what they thought they wanted. They got Saul. Saul was the king of Israel, but he ended up sacrificing, which he wasn't supposed to be doing, and he rushed ahead of God. And for this reason, his kingdom reigns no longer. So now we can jump into 1 Samuel 16, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill thy horn with oil and go, and I will send thee to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons." We see the first thing that Samuel had to do in order to be able to go to Bethlehem and find the son of Jesse that God had anointed to be king was to first quit mourning over Saul, quit moping over Saul. And likewise, if we're going to go forward in our life, we have to learn to let some things go, quit mourning over some things as well. It's a common theme in the Bible. If we're going to go forward and get what God wants us to have, go where God wants us to go, get or do what God wants us to do, we likewise, like Samuel, have to first quit mourning over some things and let some things go. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Lay aside every weight, anything I'm holding on to unnecessarily that's becoming a burden in my life. Lay aside the weight and the sin that's causing a disconnection between me and God. Lay aside those things that does so easily besets me, so I can run with patience the race that is set before me." 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, "When I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child, I acted like a child. But when I became a man, I had to put those things away." There's some things were appropriate at this point in life, but they're just not appropriate now. They're not beneficial to me now. I got to learn to put those childish things away. Philippians 3, Paul is talking about don't be confident in the flesh. He said, "Those past things I accomplished, I count that all as loss. I count that all as dung. One thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind me and pressing forth to the things which are before." In Isaiah 43, God is telling the people, forget the former ways, forget the former things. He said, "Behold, I'm doing a new thing." We see a common theme in the Bible. In order to be able to go forward, in order to be able to get what God wants us to have, do what God wants us to do, and be where God wants us to be, we first, like Samuel, have to first let go of some things. And the Lord said unto Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I've rejected him from reigning over Israel?" Question mark. God is asking Samuel a question. How long? It's a really simple question, but it's a really profound question. How long will you do this? How long will you mourn over Saul? Which lets me know for God to ask him a question, whenever Samuel was ready to let that thing go, was when he was able then to be able to do the next thing. He wouldn't have been able to go and find the new king in Bethlehem, the son of Jesse, if he first wasn't able to let go of the past king. He had to decide, I'm going to let this thing go. And likewise in our life, before we can move forward, we have to decide, like Samuel, I'm going to let this thing go, whatever it is for you. It's going to differ person to person, but I know if you ask God, he will tell you. If any man lacks wisdom, and not knowing what to let go of is lack of wisdom. If any man lacks wisdom, ask God, and he gives it to all men liberally and upbraideth not. So the common theme in the Bible, if we're going to go forward with God, if we're going to be able to get what God wants us to have, if we're able to do what God wants us to do, we have to learn to let some things go.